Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 124 with Shauna VanBogart. Hello, my babes. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm the host of this show, wealth and mindset coach over at Wander Wealthy, and your biggest cheerleader, potentially. Wander Wealthy is a platform for online business owners to help them get inspired, motivated, and empowered to tackle their business finances as well as their personal finances, manage their money mindset, and take over the world. Can we do that all together? I think we can. Today I have a special episode, very, very special episode for you because I am sitting down and interviewing my business coach. I hired Shauna at the beginning of 2019, made a big investment in my business, but I knew I really need what she had. Let me tell you a little bit about Shauna and then I'll tell you what you're going to get from this episode. So Shauna is a speaker and business coach for high-performing entrepreneurs. She has worked in the field of transformation and business strategy for over a decade, helping hundreds of business owners get out of their own way, refine their messaging, connect with more impact to their ideal audiences, and show up with conviction and confidence. And that is exactly what I needed when I was looking for a business coach for this year. Shauna and I worked together for 6 months, and she was the one that really helped me and guided me through the big business change that I made. When I worked with Shauna, I was able to fully book out my one-on-one coaching offering. I made a huge transition of my brand and my business, working with traditionally employed women to working now with online business owners, specifically online coaches. And Shauna was really able to hold the space for me to show me that I didn't need any sort of permission to do the things I wanted to do in my business, and ultimately didn't need to follow anybody's systems or strategies. And really, I could do what I want. And I think so many of us get super bogged down in running a business. Like, we lose the idea that we built this business because we wanted to have control over what work looked like for us. And we start following the systems and strategies of the coaches or the course creators or of just other people. Sometimes it's even our peers because we just feel like, well, if they're doing it, I should be doing it that way too. So we talk about that today. We talk about, first and foremost, Shauna's big impact is to help others level up to their 2.0 selves and kind of run away from their 1.0, which is basically telling them you have to do this way, otherwise you're going to die. And we also talk about, not needing permission to run your business a certain way, and how usually when we run our business out of our own internal guidance, we're much more connected to our ideal audiences than if we run our business based on the strategies and systems that someone else is telling us to run our business from. We also discuss the transition of the wave of business owners who are going into more high touch, low tech, and Shauna shares her own experience behind that, as well as why Shauna has decided to let go of one really good thing that was making a lot of money for her in her business and where she, sees herself going from here. So many great things in this episode. And you guys, Shauna has been one of my best tools in my tool belt, especially over the 6 months that we work together. And I continue to use what she's helped me find out of my own strengths and my own, internal representation systems to make really wonderful business decisions for myself. So let's get into this episode. You guys are going to probably love it just as much as I love Shauna. So here is episode 124 with Shauna VanBogart. Shauna, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. It is a special episode for me because I get to interview my coach. We got to work together for the last 6 months. So I just want to say, yay, I'm so excited to have you on. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
The best place to start for us today is just understanding how you got into this world of transformation and helping business owners and entrepreneurs kind of level up into their 2.0 selves and get out of their own way.
Yeah, so it started almost 12 years ago with image consulting. So I came into self-employment wanting to work with people with those built-in tools that they have, like appearance and body language and different communication tactics to help them reach certain goals. And at that point, when I entered into that career, which was a byproduct of me having just those innate skills, sort of out of the womb, but also job shadowing an image consultant in high school and getting a certification and that whole thing. I worked with a plethora of people, but the people that I really loved to work with were self-employed entrepreneurs, freelancers, service providers. And I really loved showing them how they could get more clients, sell more easily, and attract, like go out and network in a way where they were magnetic by using those tools. So I sort of started with the exterior transformation tools, and then always, without fail, got into discussions on the internal world, because you have to have both for it to really have long-lasting effects. And so this all started 12 years ago. And then over time, with several different projects and different businesses I've been a part of, everything has been underneath this umbrella of self-development. And the more and more I got into my work, the more I realized for myself, my sweet spot is really in the depths. So image consulting is great. I think the tools that are available that I taught on and still teach on occasionally are really powerful tools. But the real transformation happens on that internal level. And so that's where I've existed predominantly the second half of my career.
And who ends up coming to you when it comes to like needing that transformation? Like, what does your typical client look like? I mean, other than me.
Yeah. Typical client looks like a business owner, typically a service provider, meeting other coaches, consultants, photographers, interior designers, people trading their talent for time and money. And they've hit some sort of ceiling. Either they are burned out and they just don't love what they're doing anymore, but not to the full extent where they're thinking about doing anything else, but they need to sort of rediscover that joy of business ownership because they've hit a ceiling of time and energy, or they've hit a ceiling of money and they just can't seem to get past a certain revenue point. Like they can't seem to get past $75,000, or I often see the six-figure mark. Like they hit 100, but they just can't seem to grow beyond that. And that's about the time they find me.
I work in money mindset, and I talk a lot about how money has so much emotion wrapped around it. But in the world of business ownership, do you think it's money, or it's more like allowing themselves to be seen and being, doing certain things, putting themselves in the right community, growing and offering and changing up their service offerings? Like, what is it at the core?
I think at the very core, they've hit an edge. Meaning they've grown to the perimeter of the current way of operating. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes what I'm seeing is they have utilized all the tactics and the external models available to them. Meaning like they've been in business, a handful of years, and they've explored it and done it all. They've gone to lectures, they've gone to conferences, they've taken e-courses, they've gone down the path of like true doing, and they're doing all the strategies, tactics, whatever. And those can get you things without needing to venture into, operating intuitively and grounding into my universal truths that I speak to with my audience. Like you can get certain milestones through doing, but I believe, in my personal opinion, it always caps out, and everyone has a different ceiling and a different set point with that. So you get to a point where, okay, it's like taking the training wheels off, and those training wheels can sustain you for a year, 3 years, 5 years. It just depends on what your journey is. But at a certain point, you have to take those training wheels off, and you need to really be able to tap into your own creativity, channel your own inspiration, and sort of stop looking outside of you for those external models of success and really go internal. And so it's this pivot point of looking outside of you for answers, and now needing to learn how to really cultivate that identity of a business owner who's so grounded in their sense of self that they truly do know they always have their own answers, and how do they access those? Yeah,
I mean, one of the biggest things I got from working with you was knowing that it was okay to not follow all the step-by-step strategies and systems and rules that all the famous marketers and other business coaches and online people are telling you to do, and knowing that it's totally fine to kind of follow your own creativity or your own intuition and listen to that.
Absolutely. And it's necessary. Like, it's necessary to move through in any profession. You go to school, right? You have teachers, you look to them for answers. And then at a certain point, you become someone who doesn't and shouldn't need to rely on the textbook or the teacher for those answers. You need to become your own person, and you need to really drop into intuition, because there's going to be things that happen that you need to act quickly, and you can't have that security blanket. So to me, that's where, I think a lot of business owners aren't even aware that they're doing that. But if you stop to ask yourself, where am I really getting my answers? Am I looking outside of me? Am I constantly going to people? Is that predominantly what I'm doing? And I think having, obviously, mentors and coaches is important, but predominantly you should be learning how to channel that for yourself.
So many times I've had to step back and be like, wait, why am I even doing this in the first place? It feels so forced so often.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just, we get in the habit then of looking around us to, what do we need to do? We get into shoulding, and then we're like shoulding all over our business, Yeah.
And I think one other thing that we really kind of zoned in on was, and this was a huge problem that I personally had, was anytime I really set out a big goal, a big business goal, a big money goal, whatever it is, I immediately went into, how am I going to make this happen? And that was, that's what I really learned, is like how to identify when I was going into, but how am I going to do it? And instead letting myself sit with that goal. Why was it important for you in my situation to get me out of the how?
Because you were at that ceiling, right? And so that how carried you to a certain point, and then you hit, the ceiling that you sort of hit, or you were at a point where, like, now this isn't starting to feel right. Like, it's starting to feel like force. And when you're in the how, from a universal sort of spiritual level, if we want to get into that, basically what you're saying to the universe is that you don't trust your intentions that you've set. And when people talk about things like co-creation and manifesting, whatever, what they're talking about is you set an intention, and then you trust that universe, higher self, God, whatever you want to call it, energy, whatever you want to call it, is going to start arranging itself in a way to bring that intention closer to you. When you get in how, you're trying to micromanage that process. And we have such a limited perspective as to how it can actually show up, that oftentimes when something does happen, we're like, wow, I would have never cognitively and consciously even thought to have wanted it to come this way. Like, there's no way I could even dream this up. Like, it just shows up, right? So when we have those moments where something does come through, we're like, wow, I stressed a lot, and this came through such a weird backdoor channel, or it showed up in a way that I could never even think to actually create on my own, that is a great time to anchor into. I just need to set the intention, get out of how, and stay deeply rooted instead in our why, which is essentially our impact. And it's also important from a marketing perspective in terms of like attraction marketing and being a very magnetic individual. Your audience is very savvy. We're becoming more and more sophisticated as consumers in terms of reading energy, whether people realize it or not. And so when you show up, if you're so focused on the how, there's a level of uncertainty and almost like distrust there that your potential customers are picking up on. However, when you're in an energy of why and your impact, there's a certain level of connection and magnetism and power and purpose and passion behind that. That is what truly is going to attract people your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, this goes along the lines of us talking about the strategies and systems that we've been trying to follow. And it's like, it reads it's very transparent when people are following, and I do this a lot because I'm a person that likes the steps, but when people are following those strategies and systems and just like doing what everyone else is doing.
And here's the deal. Let's just be honest. A lot of the big like marketing gurus that are out there, they're teaching a tactic and a strategy that is likely on the downslope.
Yeah.
Not necessarily intentionally, although I have heard marketers specifically say, what you're teaching is something they've personally already implemented, but they probably implemented it a year ago.
Right.
So what you're getting from people is something that has been around, been proven. And again, I'm not saying not to use external references at all. It's not a black and white thing, but there's a spectrum. And so you have to just realize that what you're getting in terms of strategies from a lot of the like very tactical courses that are out there could potentially already be old news. And so when you are really tapped into your own intuition, you are sparking and getting inspired on ideas that are most relevant for your audience, because instead of spending that energy and time learning from someone else, you're spending that energy and time really tapping into your audience, which gives you the best info to work with, in my opinion.
Yeah. So what's the best way to do that? If you had to give someone an exercise, like, okay, you're trying to come up with a way to market this product or service offering that you have. How can they really tap into themselves, but also what their audience wants, as opposed to looking at some, marketing guru XYZ and going, okay, I'm going to follow their model?
This might not seem like a direct marketing tactic, but it always leads to one. So this is going to feel like a departure, but this is really valuable. And it's to sort of just stop when you get into the how and like, how am I going to get this out there? How am I going to enroll people? How am I going to convert? Blah, blah, blah. And instead you pivot the conversation in your mind to, how can I make this the most impactful program or service possible? What can I do to really make sure that the people in this program get results? So what you're doing in that is you're actually shifting to the end result, which is you're focusing your energy on the program happening, and you're focusing your actual thought processes to the people being in it and it playing out, and you're looking for ways to improve the program, to add those impactful punches. What that always leads to, without fail, are these sparks of inspiration, that like inspired action for, oh my gosh, this is a great talking point that I just landed on, or oh my gosh, this feature that I just like thought of as I'm sitting here in Impact is going to be like so cool for them to get faster results. And then there you go. There's a marketing message to which you can show up on your social and pump it out there.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's just almost like not reverse engineering, but just a different way to get to the what that you want to create, instead of immediately going into how am I going to make this happen? And that's kind of what we all need at this point.
Well, and I do it too. It's very, very easy to drop into, I want to hit these numbers. I want to have X amount of people, and then you just get focused on reverse engineering the number. And it's not about that. And at this point in the world and in entrepreneurship, we've got to get away from that. It's not working. And it's beginning to not work more and more for people, where they set a very specific revenue goal and they set a very specific enrollment goal. It's becoming like we've evolved beyond that. And so when we start with impact and when we pivot the conversation, so like literally what it looks like in my mind is I'm getting hung up on wanting 100 people and I'm watching the numbers come in, and then I'm obsessive. Like you get a little intense on like, hitting the refresh button on your PayPal or your email or whatever. And then you're like getting all caught up into things aren't happening fast enough. And then you create this big thought cloud that is inherently negative. So then it's a literal, okay, pause. Wow, I just spiraled downward. Okay, I'm going to get back to the program. Why am I doing this in the first place? How can I make it better than the last time I ran it? Or how can I really make this an experience? Less of a program, more of this experience and this feeling that I want people to have. And then when I drop into that, and whether it's I literally go to my frameworks and I start just like on paper fleshing those out even more, or I start creating a playlist maybe, or whatever, without fail, I get sparked on some creative content that feels really exciting to talk about. So that's actually how it plays out in my world.
Getting away from talking about like the kind of marketing and strategies and going more into actual just individual transformation, another thing that you help your clients go through is moving from their 1.0 self to their 2.0 self. Can you explain what that means to you and how you help? Well, first just explain what is someone in 1.0 and someone in 2.0.
Yeah, so kind of what we mentioned before, we can run with the analogy of the training wheels. Someone with 1.0 has their training wheels on. And when we have training wheels on, we're not self-confident, perhaps. We are not trusting that we can take those wheels off. Therefore, we're looking outside of ourselves. And then there's a lot of sabotage wrapped up into it. So someone in their 1.0 is blocked up. They're in their own way. And each of us have different weapons of choice when it comes to sabotage. So it could be perfectionism, it could be overthink, it could be procrastination, it could be pure, like it could be second guessing. I mean, we all have sort of go-tos. And when you are aware of what the go-to weapon of choice is, you can start to diffuse it. And then oftentimes that 1.0 will pick up a different weapon, right? So you have to really keep tabs on how that 1.0 part of you, and I like to create a separation, which is why we talk about 1.0 and 2.0 as we move through the transformation process, so that when you're going through your day, it's as simple as, is this a negative, judgmental, critical thought, or is this an expansive, loving, optimistic, forward-focused thought? And so 1.0 is always the more critical, judgmental, caught up in fear. It's not bad. It's not, we want to get away from terms of like good and bad. It's a protection mechanism. 1.0 is deep into protection over you. And it wants to stay deeply in a comfort zone, even if it's dysfunctional. So its job is to keep you in habits that are comfortable. And it's your job as a 2.0 self to realize that, first and foremost. And second, that they might be dysfunctional habits and they need to shift, and to sort of step outside of yourself to observe what goes on in your mind, then how you're motivated, what goes through your head as you're taking literal actions in your business, and even things like what goes through your head when you pull out your debit card to swipe it. Are you in fear and scarcity? Are you in DGAF, like whatever, doesn't mean anything that I'm swiping a debit card. Money comes to me, So 1.0 is that like judgmental, sort of small, constricted, whatever you want to call it. It shows up as what we would label as negative, and 2.0 is the expansive truth of who we really are, which is imperfectly perfect.
Mm-hmm. And so I feel like in order to make that transition, you have to start becoming very aware of those thoughts and feelings and just things that you are doing. What's a good way to build that awareness?
Embracing your neuroses. Like, you're just going to be neurotic. Like that's just the way it goes with this work. You have to, again, it's like that stepping outside of yourself and taking an observation role and looking at it with pure curiosity, not judgment. Because if you're in judgment, then you're still in your 1.0. So as I'm going about my launch and I'm watching the numbers come in, the 1.0 is going to start going, you're not doing enough. You're not marketing enough. You're only getting these numbers. We need to do this. We need to do that, right? That's all 1.0. So what I do is just observe, okay, these are interesting thoughts. Just curious, like just as a curious observer. Like where is this coming from? And has worrying about this in the past really served me? No. Okay, well, what can I do instead to distract my mind, move my mind away from it? I think that's the first place to start. One very practical tip is just spend 24 hours, spend an entire workday tracking your thoughts. And it could be as simple as you don't even necessarily need to write them down, although if you want to do that, but you could literally have a column, a sheet of paper, line down the middle, 2 columns, and on the left side is negative thoughts or judgmental thoughts, criticism, and on the right-hand side is loving thoughts, optimism, trust, whatever. And just keep a tally. And at the end of the day, which column is bigger? And for most people that are at least coming to me because they're stagnant, their column of judgment, critical, negative, pessimistic is bigger. Mm-hmm. So that's where to start. Just track your thoughts for a day.
Whew. Okay. That's a good exercise. And I'm always like, okay, easier said than done, but I can do that.
It's way easier said than done. Yes.
So I want to move on because I have a lot of topics I want to talk to you about because we've had a lot of good conversations about these in the past and I just want to bring them to the public.
Yeah.
I'd really love to get your take on the moving more into, especially for the online entrepreneur and specifically like online coaches and the ones that are providing learning experience or transformative experiences, this idea of going more high touch and getting away from a lot of the online courses and, very passive ways of creating an income through their business. What are you seeing in working with the various business owners that you do work with?
I've seen this for years, as you and I have talked about, and this was a deliberate move on my end about 3-ish to 4 years ago. I made a deliberate pivot to go more high touch, low tech. And I came from very high tech. Like you and I first connected when I was building out a big online course. That was closer to the high touch part, but it still was very high tech. It was all, funnel building and digital marketing and all of that. And frankly, like that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Like I ran that program and I was just, I felt contempt. Like I was over it. I was so over the whole, like people call it the dirty F word these days, like the funnel. And I just was like, I'm dying. I'm like dying for connection, and just so hungry for it. And so for me, I made a deliberate move to sort of take a step back, well, I shouldn't say a step back, it's a step forward. But for me, it felt like a lot of steps backwards because I had so much success with digital marketing and e-courses with my other business. So I thought the natural next step was for me to just go bigger with online courses. And so it was a little bit of a mental challenge for me to get over that hump, but I had to listen to myself, and what I was saying internally was like, I'm so thirsty for connection and like true engagement with people. So what I've seen and where I think a lot of my colleagues would agree with me is like the passive set it, forget it has sort of been burned through. Everything in cycles, it will come back around. I have no doubt about it. But there's a time and a very specific place for it. And now people are like, okay, been there, done that. I've been through the e-courses. People are getting more critical about them. They're really looking for people to get hands-on with them, more of like a concierge approach, or at least with group programs, running the trainings live rather than them showing up watching a recorded video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we just had talked about that before. I'm running my Payday Party right now, and I was like, I can't just keep pumping out content if the people are behind, because so many, especially online courses, and I have my own that run on Evergreen, and people go through about half of them, and then they feel behind, and they know that they're recorded and they get access to them for life. But we've all done that too. We sign up for a course and we go through half of it, and then we drop off the face of the planet and forget that we invested a bunch of money in it. And
totally,
when you have someone there going live and then also being able to say, hey, I think people need more time to get caught up. So what I did was I delayed my next class until Sunday instead of having it today, which is Thursday, because I want people to get out of it what they're putting into it. And I don't care about like just the money and being like, thank you for your money. Enjoy my evergreen online course that you may not finish. Like, I really want people to get through it and to get the transformation from it.
You know what? And I love that you did that so much. Not only are you just setting a really awesome example for your audience, but it shows that we no longer have tolerance for perfectionism. And that means perfectionism over our systems as well. Yes. In the past, we had the rigid funnel and it was this way, and the courses go out, they're dripped, it's delivered to you. We don't care about impact. We care about getting the money. We care about getting the conversion. And in this, 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss blew it up. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like he blew up this whole online business idea. And that was, what he did was, at least in the beginning, was fairly removed from connection to consumers per se, in my opinion. It was very much like, how can we hire these cheap workers overseas and pump a product out, And again, that's not inherently bad for, I think, a certain segment of entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs, I think, in your audience, they can't do that. It will not work. And same thing with my audience. Like the people that are attracted to me, they are on a different sort of path, and impact has to come first. And so I love that you understand and are so deeply grounded in your impact that you can give up the schedule for the sake of your clients. And the thing is, like, a lot of people would get hung up in, oh, but how is this going to look? Are they going to think that I'm letting them down? Is this going to make me look like a bad business owner? No, it's actually making you look really good that you're going off script, And I think a lot of people get hung up in that.
It's pretty funny because I was literally just like, Tess pre-Shauna would have thought like, oh my God, I'm going off schedule. I can't do this. I have to follow the schedule. I have to do the thing. I have to be the person that's going to pump it out when I said it was going to be pumped out. And I gave it no thought now. It's been 6 months since we worked together, and now I'm like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to extend this. It's for the betterment of them. And I mean,
And they know that.
It's either way for me. Yeah. So thanks to you, I went into my 2.0 and I was like, of course I would do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that.
The other thing, and I think this kind of relates, is in a similar way, the idea of getting comfortable with letting the good things go. I know you've done this with your vision board restyle, and I think a lot of people who build out these evergreen products, like they know that works and that's what's been working for them, and they really like making the money that way, but there's also a time and place of moving on and leveling up. And but I think that's also very hard to do. So how do you approach those situations for yourself and help your clients go through that?
Oh, yeah. Such a necessary process. I mean, I've let go of, 6-figure businesses that I built from the ground up. Not necessarily let go, but pivoted away. And I will say, one of the biggest examples, I sort of hung in much longer than I probably needed to, because that's not a small amount of money. Like that's a big chunk of change right there. And so, part of me is like, well, I built this and it's working and it's hit these numbers, but at the same time I was, unfulfilled and more so being called to this other place to step into my real gifts that were not really being utilized in that other business. With Vision Board Restyle, now I'm just at such a place where I'm so intuitively connected. I love that program. I really love it. There's always a mourning period. I mourn the fact that it just ended and I will never run it in that way again. But I just knew, and I don't know the end result, but I just knew, leave it on a high note. It's time to go, because what will happen if you don't exit is the universe will start closing doors for you. It will. And I think a lot of people have experienced this where they kind of get intuitive hit that they need to leave, but then, the rational part of our brain kicks in and is like, justifies stay in it or keep it or don't go yet. What about this? Like all the fear and the scarcity but the money or, the engagement or how's it going to look? Right. And so, what you're doing if you don't walk away is the universe is always trying to course correct you. So it will start closing doors. Random left field things might happen. The website might get shut down. People will stop converting. You might get potential clients, all of a sudden they're ghosting you, whatever. And that's a sign of like, you've evolved out of it. There's something over here, bright, shiny lights trying to get your attention and you're not moving there. So if you don't move there on your own, the universe will shut its doors. But I'm always focused on, and someone else said this, I don't know who, I think a lot of people say it, but my best work is in front of me. And I'm deeply grounded in that. I was not as Shauna 1.0 in business. My best work was right in front of me and I was clutching to it. And it's that clutching to it that is leaving money and impact on the table. So for me, I just so know my best work is in front of me. And I use the historical context of my business, like the anchors of, remember how you just channeled the idea of Vision Board Restyle out of nowhere? Remember how you got these ideas and then grew it into like, you will never be at a lack of ideas. If you feel the intuitive hit, let it go. Otherwise, you're leaving a lot on the table, opportunity cost.
Thank you for all of this wonderful conversation. I want to move into the money round. And we didn't get your money story in the beginning because we were on such a good path towards all of these things that I wanted to talk about. So let's start with that. Since it's a money podcast, we always like to talk about our money stories and how we grew up around money, what maybe you learned about money, either good or bad, that impacted your relationship with money today. So can you tell us a little bit about your money story?
Yeah. So I grew up in Minnesota, like typical Midwestern city. My parents were both farm kids, grew up, they both had great jobs. So we were very like middle class. It was comfortable. I couldn't have whatever I wanted. We didn't not have an abundance of stuff. I had most of my brother's passed down toys, which I loved, for what I had. And it was one of the things that I sort of prided and I see so much good in still, but I also see the shadow side to it is like every year back to school, my mom would say, here's $300 for back to school clothes or whatever it was, $200 or $300. You can spend it however you want to spend it, but you only get $300. And that really taught me how to have discernment. And so, if I wanted the $100 pair of jeans, which I think that would be like a massive amount back in the day when I was in like school, but let's say.
What were those jeans that were like, well, that might have been after you were
silvers?
Yes.
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 If I wanted the silvers with the big flared, bottoms, then
like the gemmed butt.
Yes. Then I've got to let go of, I won't have as much stuff because I'm going to put most of my money there. So it really taught me about discernment for my money. And you will, if you were around me living with me, you would see to this day, I'm very intentional about how I spend my money because of that. However, there's a shadow to sort of frugality. And the shadow there is you only have this amount and that's it. And so, yes, I maximized what I have, and I have a beautiful quality of discernment, which I'm so grateful for because that transcends to other areas of my life. But I also grew up with a frugal mentality, which is a lot of times put on a pedestal, is like a really good thing.
Yeah.
And so I sort of felt, some guilt around maybe luxury and designer, and nothing was like explicitly said in my household, but we were just normal. We would never fly first class. Like that would be like, you don't talk about that. So it was a little stifling from a sense of like where my dreams were. And so I had to sort of unravel a lot of maybe passed down narratives that is very generational, around like guilt of spending on certain things. Mm-hmm. The silver jeans, that cracks me up. The buckle.
Yes, the buckle. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's what I was trying to think of. Now going into your money mentality today, how would you say it's different, and how do you use, what you learned, or after going through lots of your own personal transformative work, and even just like, how do you think about money?
Now how I think about money is it's not scarce at all. I did not know I was a person that could make money. Like early on in first 5 years in my business, money was up on a pedestal, and it was this thing I was chasing, and this thing that I really wasn't sure if I could make happen in my life or not. And I wasn't comfortable around it. And I sort of had an awkward intimidation with people who were wealthy or had a lot of money. Like there was a very awkward relationship with that. Now I'm just like, yeah, I make money. It's kind of a duh. Like it's kind of like I will never not know how to make money. I will never not have money. Like it's kind of like the second season of Big Little Lies. I forget the gal, but she's like married to the husband who like loses everything. She's like, I will not be rich. And I'm like, it is not of that intensity, but I'm kind of like, I will never not be in a position. And, let's say, God forbid, like we bankrupt or something. Like I know myself so well, and I know ideas are abundant. I will always find a way to make money. So my attitude is like money piles up, and money's always there. It's not scarce. And when I spend it, it's not gone. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is when I spend it, no matter what I'm spending on, it's an investment. Even if it's not a direct, like very literal, logical ROI, everything that goes out, I know is an investment, and it comes back to me. I just know it. So yeah, it's my abundance consciousness has shifted big time in the second phase of my self-employed career.
Awesome. So let's get a little more specific and they're pretty easy questions. How do you make money? Or what do you spend it on, and what do you save for?
I make money through one-on-one coaching, through group programs, and through my membership program, Club 2.0. So I and then I always am running, potential offers that come up. Like I just did Voxer coaching for a month, and that was another channel of income. So my income spread, that's just within my coaching business, and then my other business, Studio for Image Professionals, that's a digital house of courses for the image consulting industry, and that's relatively passive. So that money comes in as well. And then what I spend it on, I have very little overhead. So the money that goes out the door goes to people. It goes to my right-hand woman, Jess, who's my operations director. It goes to Michael, who is my counsel and is by my side to keep me in alignment. And then it goes to, anything like right now I made a massive investment in branding, but it goes to people. And then outside of work, it goes to travel. It goes to travel, and it goes to self-care.
And what do you save for?
What do I save? Well, right now we're saving for a family. Right now we're saving for a family, saving for a potential new home. And those would be the two biggest things. Most everything else I can sort of pay for outright.
All right, let's go into the quick and dirty Q&A round. This is a couple fast-paced questions to wrap up the show. Before we do that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing openly and honestly. Thank you for giving us some really great exercises to do to level up to our 2.0 selves. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
What is one totally random thing that you can't stop thinking about lately?
It's always if I smell. I know it's like so weird. I know, but I was born without a sense of smell, and I am so paranoid about it that I can't even tell you how many times a day I'm thinking about, does this smell? Does this smell? I wonder if this smells. I wonder if this has a scent. Like, I wonder if these towels smell musty. Like, I don't have that, and so it's a big part of my day that I randomly think about often.
I often forget that you can't smell things. Which is just another very random thing just to share in general. But I also can't imagine not being able to like sniff my own pits and see if I'm stinky.
I know, especially in the summer in Charleston, humidity. I'm like, oh my God, do I smell? Do I smell? Do I smell? And I don't trust my husband. I mean, no offense.
I was going to say,
guys give the best feedback.
You need a pit checker.
I know. I have one girlfriend who is like my nose. She picks my perfume out, and I really trust her. Like, she knows me and she knows my personality. So she does those kinds of things for me. Like, she's picked my deodorant out, those sorts of things. But she's not local. Like, she used to be local and she moved away. So now I don't have a local based nose to rely on.
Oh no. Good thing there is such thing as Amazon Prime. She can just be like, here's a good one, order this.
Exactly.
Who or what account is your favorite to follow on social media?
This was hard for me to think of. It's gonna be either Celeste Barber, who's a comedian, who just doesn't take herself seriously at all. And I don't know if you've seen her account.
Is that the woman that does like the Kardashian pictures?
Yeah, she like takes celebrity photos and then she recreates them, and it's just hilarious, and it's such a good break throughout my day to see her account and to just laugh. And then the other account on Instagram that I cannot get enough of is Please Hate These Things.
What is that?
Have you seen that one? Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's an account that highlights these random interior, it's absurd, ugly, and just plain stupid things in home design. And if you go to the account, it's just like the most absurd interiors, and the captions are just hilarious. And so my favorite accounts are ones that get me out of my head and they make me laugh throughout my day.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is your favorite entrepreneurship book, or just book that has made a huge impact on your life?
Oh, well, you know what's coming with this one. It's going to be Busting Loose from the Money Game, hands down. It's my number one recommended book, and likely a book that a lot of people haven't heard of.
What is the last time, or when and what took place, the last time that you felt like you really fucked it up and now it's just been a good learning lesson for you?
This was hard, and I'm going to be fully transparent. I could not think of anything in my business, but I will say my marriage. Not like fucked up my marriage, but like, making a mistake within the marriage, or like doing something that my husband has called me out on and was really hard to be called out on. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then you move through it and you have these really amazing learning lessons. And I've been asked before, like, what's the thing you do outside your business that's had the most impact in your business? And my number one response is working on my marriage. Like, we are such mirrors to each other, and I think any intimate partner is such a mirror and a trigger, and using those triggers for good, and instead of like repelling your triggers, being trigger happy, my husband triggers the shit out of me, and so and vice versa. And so there's been times where I've like really made like a fuck up in our marriage, and it's taught me to actually have a stronger sense of self and evolve from it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. The best piece of financial advice you've been told that you would like to pass along?
Pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. I know you tell your audience this too. I cannot, I'm just going to piggyback off of what a lot of other people say, because that is so important. And no matter how many times we hear that, I find people aren't doing it. So they need people like you to like really ground that into them, because I got so blocked up about, 3 years into my business because I was not paying myself. And then I was just freaked out to spend money. And that's not the way it should be. And so I had to take a leap to start like treating myself to the $20 outlet shirts, that I was so frozen in buying because I was pouring everything back into my business and so like, money limited and scarce. And so pay yourself first, get in the habit of that. It makes a big difference in the long run.
Awesome. Shauna, thanks again for joining us for this episode. It was so good to chat with you and to share my coach with everyone else out there. Tell us where we can find you so we can continue to stay in touch.
Yeah, I'm Shauna VanBogart everywhere. So I'm pretty easy to find online. Instagram is my predominant hangout. So you can find me on Instagram at Shauna VanBogart.
And now that Vision Board Restyle is packed away, what's up next for you? How can people start working with you if they want to?
Yeah. So right now I'm offering 3-hour business intensive. So if you want to come, if the person that I was describing earlier sounds like you, and you really want to get that spark back, and you're feeling like you're missing something, and you want to get in alignment, then that would a 3-hour session together packs a really big punch, and I love doing those. That'd be over Zoom, virtually get the recording and all of that. And then Club 2.0, if you want to really step into that 2.0 place, that's my subscription coaching platform. You can come in at a very low dollar amount compared to what you would pay for like a VIP intensive, and enter into a community of people that are seriously like, I feel honored to have the people in that club because they're just rock stars. It's a very high energy, high vibe. Everyone's super positive, and I am obsessed with Club 2.0.
Awesome. I can absolutely attest to that. So, Shauna, thanks again for coming on the show. It was so nice to have you.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun.
And that's a wrap. Episode 124 with Shauna VanBogart. If you guys want to get at the links of what we talked about in this episode, you can go to the show notes, head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 124, or click the link in the description of this episode in your podcast player. One more announcement for you today. You guys, this week I wrapped up the Payday Party workshop from end of August into the beginning of September. And if you were bummed that you missed out on this workshop, I am hosting one more to get us all prepared for going into the final quarter of 2019. So if you're ready to make these last 3 months really count for you or prepare you for heading into 2020, then this is your chance to get inside the Payday Party workshop, where we're going to be setting purpose-driven revenue goals while also working on your money mindset and identifying some money stories that might be sabotaging your success. And yes, even including some of that pay yourself first stuff that Shauna was talking about at the end of this episode. So if you want to sign up for the guest list, aka the wait list, you can go to wanderwealthy.com/party. The Payday Party workshop for this final quarter is going to kick off on September 23rd, and you guys are going to be the first to know because the doors are opening next week. But if you get on the guest list, you might get a special treat to get inside early. I do cap the attendees of this workshop because I don't like to spread myself too thin, and I want to make sure you guys have a chance for some one-on-one coaching action inside of the workshop. And past attendees have absolutely loved this. They've loved that it's been super intimate, and they've gotten so much out of the workshop. They feel like they get way more value than the price they pay to be in it, but I just want to make it as accessible for you to get access to some of my calculators that are going to totally rock your world and be able to uncover some of this money mindset stuff that can totally transform the way that you think about your business and the money coming into it. So wanderwealthy.com/party if you want to get on the guest list. And like I said, registration doors are going to be opening very, very soon. So you do not want to miss this. All right, my friends, until we chat again next time, I hope you wander wealthy.